2.5 weeks, we would play these French-speaking Muslim athletes, very good competition. We would invite them over and share the gospel through a translator. And it was through those conversations and hearing about how Christ would cost them their whole lives that I realized that God didn't cost me anything, and that I literally lived for my sport. And so God captured my heart on that trip in West Africa, and I came back to my final year in college at Kentucky, and I just had a conviction for sin. I had a different drive. I wanted my teammates to know about Christ. And so I began to be discipled for the first time. There was guys around me that for the first 3 years, they were pursuing me, and I was kind of rejecting them. They were kind of weird, I thought, and I'm this big D1 basketball player and just kind of prideful. And I turned back to those guys, and they were older men that played sports, and so they began to invest into me one-on-one, and between class and practice, they would open a Bible and they would train me just in the basics of the Christian faith. How do I be a D1 player with all this pressure, and how do I also glorify God or grow in my relationship with God? And so discipleship, I began my journey with just being discipled, being mentored, and that really changed my life. I began a Bible study. I wanted to reach my teammates, and I remember writing a list of all my team members' names, and I wanted each week to reach out to one guy and try to share the gospel with him. So my life just looked different. And so anyways, but I continued my career post-college. I did not go to the NBA. I'm very close 2 times. But I ended up playing overseas professionally, which is a lot of fun. So I was there for 6 years. That picture there, I was in Japan. And I was there for a couple years. I played in the Spanish league for a little while. There's a Canadian league as well that I played in for a year. And so I just kind of lived in and out of a suitcase and played basketball, got paid for it. But during this time, I was still growing in my faith. It was hard because we would play on Sundays, but I was still growing. But as you can probably guess, there's not a lot of community over there. There's not a lot of English speakers, especially in the areas that we played in. And it was hard to grow. And that was one of the things that really pushed me out of playing professionally. After my 6th year, I was just like, man, this is really hard. Isolation, and none of my teammates follow Christ. It was just really hard. But also in that time, God sent me. I feel like God truly wanted me overseas because I began to see, especially in like Japan, millions of people that never heard of the name of Jesus, even my teammates. I remember we played 1 year in Tokyo, and we would ride the train everywhere, and I remember my teammate, who was a translator as well, he saw me reading the Bible, and he was like, what was that? What is that? And so we talked for a little bit, and I was like, have you ever read John 3:16? He said, no. And I was just blown away. I was blown away that he's never heard of Jesus and the gospel. And as I pursued my teammates through a language barrier, they didn't know Christ either. And so God just began to develop in me this desire to reach the world through sport for Christ. And so that's really what kind of called me into missions. And, the first thing that a lot of players are encouraged to do is, hey, are you going to go into coaching? Well, I didn't have a desire to coach. You got to really have a desire. And so I just felt like God was calling me into doing some sort of ministry through sport. And so I moved from Japan, came to Houston, went to Houston, and began to be trained really by Crew, Athletes in Action, and met my wife and moved up here to Dallas. So our mission is to build spiritual movements everywhere through the platform of sport so that everyone knows someone who truly follows Jesus. And we want to see a Christ follower on every team, on every sport, on every campus, essentially. And that's the first question I get asked is, oh, do you work with basketball? I do work with basketball, but usually not. Usually I work with track, I work with soccer athletes. But my heart is tugged towards collegiate athletes because that's where my heart was changed. And that's where probably many of y'all as well, that's a time where you are really, you're on your own. You're making your own decisions. You're not with your parents. They're not forcing you to go to church. I've heard many, many stories of people's lives being changed for the better, for the worse in college. And so I really think that the college campus is really just a place where we need to be at, where the gospel needs to be at. And then you think about athletes, they're even more busy than college students. And so you have these high-profile people with a lot of influence, and normally they zoom through college. Sports ends even if you're 7'2", and it's like, okay, what do I do now? Like, sports is going to leave you. And so we want to go on campus and give them a chance to hear the gospel. And we want them to hear that they're made more for their sport. They're made more than the sport that they play. God has a plan for them. He's pursuing them. And they can actually use sport to enjoy Him and glorify Him more and actually be a better athlete. So anyway, so our vision, our mission is to engage with athletes, to engage with coaches, and to give them a chance to hear the gospel in their language. And normally we have to really just kind of squeeze into their schedule. And so that's where we're chasing a lot of athletes usually throughout the week. So that's our team. It's not just me and Holly out here, but this is not our Dallas team, but this is our Texas team. And this was taken a few weeks ago at Crew Conference up in Milwaukee. But you got San Antonio, Houston represented, you got Louisiana, you got Arkansas. So just all those people that are raising supports and they're trusting the Lord to change the lives of athletes around Texas. So, and this slide is just kind of our why. So people ask me, what's your why? Some of these quotes, these are actually quotes that I heard. I wrote them down, and I go back and it fuels me up, and I'll change these out whenever I hear more. So sophomore female row team, I've never heard of the Great Commission. What is that exactly? And she was a Christian. I am a Christian, but I honestly haven't read the Bible this whole semester. But I'd like to, I just don't know where to start. And that was at a Christian campus. I didn't even know that Jesus was supposed to come back. Coach asked one of our senior teammates to pray at practice, and to my surprise, she responded, "I would, but I don't know how." And this is actually right across the street at Nelson. So I haven't been to church since the 4th grade. I think the church is full of hypocrites, and so I don't go back. I was a football player that I was working with for a semester. So on and on, we just were reminded of why we're here. Coaches are there for their physical development, maybe their academic developments, but they're there to win. And they don't really normally care about your spiritual life. And so that's where we come in and fill that space and give them a chance to grow in the Lord. What do we hope to accomplish? What is our big goal? Well, it's really a few, but to train and equip athletes to be leaders for Christ. We're not just a ministry to fulfill more of your time on campus, because you have little of that anyways. We want to prepare you to be a disciple maker for the rest of your life. And so a lot of our ministry is life on life. We live 7 minutes from this campus, which we do a lot at, Nelson University. And we get a chance to invite athletes over to our home, and they get to be around our marriage and our family. And other of our staff, they're doing that up at SMU and UNT. And so we just want to train an athlete, just like they're being trained mentally and physically. We want to train them spiritually. How do I walk with the Lord? How do I know the Lord? How do I grow in the Lord? How do I play football and glorify God? What does that even look like? This is cool. This is taken last year. This is the football team actually over here at Nelson. So I mainly do ministry at Nelson University, which is formerly SAGU. I do it at a junior college up the road in Lancaster, I guess as they say around here, called Cedar Valley, and then SMU. And so, but anyways, this is a football study last year over here, and this is led by a student athlete, which is really cool. When builds sin, just like any Cru ministry, Campus Crusade for Christ, if you're familiar, we follow the same formula: win athletes to Christ, build them in their faith, and send them on a lifetime of being on mission. And so I love that top left photo there. It's me with a soccer player. And so yeah, and then these are just photos of, a lot of people ask me, well, what do you do when you get on campus? And so we go where athletes are at, right? They like to eat, so we go where they eat at normally. And so a lot of times you go to the cafeteria. That's the place where normally, especially if they're in season, they have 5 or 10 minutes, and we want to move into their lives during that 5 or 10 minutes. Normally they have headphones on. Let's go and engage with them. Let's get the headphones off and let's talk. Top right there, that's actually at Commerce, Texas. It's now called East Texas A&M or University. Anyways, so we're at a football practice. So if we gain the respect and the trust of coaches, they'll allow us to go into practices, to be a part of team meetings, just the ministry of presence. And so just being around, building that trust. And that guy that John, my coworker there, is talking with, he's injured. So that's a key time. If you see somebody injured or down or whatever, you just go talk to them. Injury for an athlete, that's the worst. We'll do tabling events, the bottom left, and then bottom right, his name is Chris. He was a thrower at UNT. He's now a coach up at Texas Tech, track and field. He was Catholic. And that picture there, has anybody heard of the 4 spiritual laws? So, so we use that. They've renamed it something to Knowing God Personally. And that booklet there is called the Knowing God Personally. But anyways, we're taking him through the gospel. He actually accepted Christ at the very end of this. And so it's just, and this is at the lunch place, so the cafeteria. And so any chance, any way that we can just enter into the lives of these busy athletes, that's what we do. Build. This is the fun part. This is where we find an athlete. We got a funny acronym, okay? We look for FAT athletes, F-A-T, faithful, available, and teachable. And so if we find these athletes that aren't floating in and out, we find these fat athletes, we like to spend time with them, lots of time. And so just like I was hungry when I came back to be discipled, that's what we do here. And so these are a few photos of what we do. These are hard to get because you don't want to, just be taking photos when they're praying. But cross-country team up at UNT a couple years ago. This guy's name is Chance. He's actually a current goalie at SMU. We were going through we go through a number of tools. That day we were going through the wheel illustration that the navigators use. On that paper there, I think we were having some kind of team study there. And so, right here, we like to get, one-on-one is good, and we will do one-on-one, but as y'all know, we're better together. And so let's get 2 or 3 of you together for a semester, for 2 semesters, and let's grow. Let's grow together. Let's hold each other accountable. Let's confess sin. Let's encourage each other. And we begin to teach them the importance of that. And also, we teach them during this time the importance of a local church. We are not your local church. We want you to be plugged in and involved with a local church somewhere and being members. And so when they leave campus, they're not lost. They're able to slide right into a local body. Coach Moore there, he's no longer a coach. He's a teacher across the street, but we equip coaches as well. with tools. Sometimes they do a good job at discipleship, so we equip them. And so a place like DBU, it's hard. Part of my job as well, as explaining to Lou earlier, is the missional part of our job is every campus has a culture. They've got a mission statement. They've got values, ethnicities and all that. There's all that plays a part in different campuses, and so we get to go on campus and how do we best serve and love on these athletes? The four. Has anybody heard of the four in here? I've talked about it before, I think last year when I was here. But it's one of the tools that we use. And so, like I said, we have a number of tools, and this is an evangelism tool that we use. I'm wearing one right now. And student athletes love bracelets. And the four is, I think it was created by Cru in Switzerland long ago. But it's basically the four spiritual laws wrapped up in four symbols. And so the heart is, you talk about the love of God. Why were we created? To have a relationship with God. So we have purpose. And then the vision sign is, as you all know, it's when sin entered into the world. And so we get to have a chance to talk about what is sin? Have you sinned? And then obviously the cross is Christ, God's answer, God's remedy to sin. And then the question mark, we always bring people to the point of a decision. It's not enough just to know about what God did, that he offered us a gift, but we must reach out and receive that gift. And it's a super simple way to share the gospel. And I actually have a bunch of these. We're going to meet at the Rotunda later. If y'all want one, come by. I'll give you one. But I do want to warn you that people will ask what this is, and you will get into a spiritual conversation pretty easily. So, when builds send. So that final piece, send. So there's average of 300 to 400 college athletes on any given campus. We will never have enough staff to reach the 14 or 15 campuses, even in Dallas alone, not even including Fort Worth. And so we want to train student athletes to then go out and reach their teams and teammates and colleagues and peers when they're on the bus, when they're in the locker room. And so we want to train them to become, not just learn how to share the gospel, but let's actually go out and practice it. And so we will have times where we'll go out on a campus and we'll practice sharing the gospel together. And then David there, he's a cross-country runner. He was actually leading a Bible study, that's the best part, is when you get to see a guy or girl that you invested in, and now they're leading their team into a Bible study or a time of discipleship. Family on mission, like I said, we like incorporating our family into and around these athletes as much as we can. And so my wife, Holly, there, she's hanging out with 2 softball players. That's her main role, so she's part-time. We're trying to get her to full-time. But she likes to engage with the female athletes. Our kids there at a kickoff event, and then there's kind of a dinner that we have with athletes over. And so here's just a picture, snapshot of some of the movements that are currently happening. UNT, I'm not at UNT, it's too far away. We have staff there. That was this year. Jen Gilbert, she was an Olympic softball player. She just joined staff. She's leading a bunch of women there. And then there's our Mean Green United weekly meeting. TCU, I don't do anything there as well. That was an athlete that I discipled at SMU who transferred to TCU. And anyways, God is doing some neat things at TCU as well. SMU, that's really where probably our biggest movement is happening. Harvey here, he kind of started the movement out of COVID. And so we started to meet with him. He's a soccer player. And he introduced us to his coach, to his teammates. And then now we've got a very mature movement at SMU, starting with one guy. That's evangelism, sharing the gospel, going out. He's a part-time guy, Stephen Wynn. Another way that we get in front of teams to share what we do, team meetings. So that was right before a swim meet at SMU. A lot of times coaches, sometimes they don't, but a lot of times coaches gives us a chance to share with the team, Bible studies, who we are. We offer trips around the world, kind of like the one that I took. And so if you're interested in growth spiritually, we give them a chance to hear about that. Oh, there's a baptism that took place last year at the outdoor swim facility at SMU. Pretty cool. So SMU 2, so this is kind of the most recent kind of cool things that are happening. So that's kind of a female. So I'll just kind of speed up here. I'm running out of time. So these two guys, this guy right here, Slade, and this guy right here, Soren. These are two transfers that just came in. They're seniors this year. This is their last year. They just transferred in from Furman College out in the East Coast. And God just did so much work in their lives. And when they got to SMU, they were hungry like I was to be invested in. They found me and another coworker, Nick, this guy right here. And these are guys that we look for. Like, these are like top of the line guys because, yes, they're passionate about their sport. I think they're ranked third soccer. They just came out. So they're very good, high-profile athletes. But, man, they are so on fire to reach their teammates. And so this happened. This is the first day of when all the soccer players returned. This is probably 3 weeks ago. And these guys invited them. And so it's so exciting. This is the funnest quote that he told me, Slade. So Slade just got baptized at Watermark 2 weeks ago. And he shared his testimony and everything. That's him speaking there. But Slade told me the Sunday that night, he said that me and Soren are leaving. This is our last semester, and there's 4 freshmen, these guys, that they've identified as fat athletes, and they're like, we're leaving, and we got to have somebody that's going to take our place to continue sharing the gospel. And so this whole next semester, they're taking 2 of these guys each, and they're investing into them. And so we're able to meet with these guys weekly to pour into them as they pour into their teammates, and hopefully that begins a stronger movement at SMU. Nelson University. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a Christian campus. It's an AG, Assemblies of God, charismatic campus. So there's a lot of really strong Christians there, but most athletes, there's 400 athletes over there, over 400. And most of them are there for their scholarship. Most of them are there to play their sport. They'll sign a paper that says that I'm a Christian and I won't drink and cuss and everything, but they're there for their sport. And so there's a lot of opportunity, even in the campus right across from us here at Nelson. Dallas College. I'll start wrapping it up, Lou. So Dallas College is a fun one. It's interesting. Dallas College is not a single college. It's a string of 7 different community colleges. And 6 of those has athletics. So 6 of the 7 campuses, there's 40 teams, there's 600 athletes roughly. And this past year, you can see me up there, I've been working this past year to try to be recognized as an organization to come onto campus to reserve rooms, to just be known and be around. And God actually blessed that. In June, we became like partners of Dallas College, which is great. There's no other sports ministry that's doing that. And so you can see the height difference between me and this soccer girl here. A lot of fun. But a lot of these guys, this is their first time of hearing the gospel. It's broken homes for them. This is the last stop for them for athletics. And a lot of them work, so they come to school. There's no dorms at these campuses. They take their class in the morning. They practice from 1 to 3, and then they go to their jobs. And so we're learning how do we enter into these lives, these college athletes' lives on a commuter college like this. But God is moving. God is working. It's really neat. And so I'm out of time. So God's just doing some really cool stuff. Like I said, ultimately our mission is to build a spiritual movement, not of addition. We don't care as much about bringing 400 athletes into a room and sharing the gospel. That would be great. But we want to find those two guys like Slade and Soren, to invest into them so they can multiply into 4, so they can multiply into 8, so they can multiply into 16, so we can see this multiplication process over the course of 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 10 years. And that's what we're passionate about. And so this is my ministry website. If you want to take a picture of that, you can email me or text me if you want to get in contact. But lastly, we're just overjoyed to be partnered with Waxahachie Bible. And you guys just love people and love the gospel, and we're blessed anytime we can be around. You guys bless our kids with Awana and VBS and birthday cards that y'all send, and the Easter egg hunt that we went on. So we're just so grateful that you guys are partnered with us in the gospel, and we're thankful. So that's it.
Thank you, Jared. And if you have more questions or want to get more information, we're going to move over to the rotunda. He's got some information over there. He's got the bracelets if you want to get one of those. And the opportunity to ask more questions and find out more about the ministry. But we definitely appreciate what they're doing and reaching a segment of our population we don't necessarily think about that much. But these athletes are very distracted, and if they can get them interested in Christ, it's a wonderful thing. So thank you, Jared, for your ministry. All right, we're done.